doing number 4 now, and guys, I give you the warning. Remember, I write these tests. I'm trying to get you guys, to do well with this stuff, so I warn you about the trapdoors. These are absolute value, and these are absolute value. So obviously B and C are slightly different. B absolute value is the whole thing. C absolute value is just part of it. Here's the biggest mistake people have been making. You do not absolute value first. You first put together the numbers inside the absolute value. But we'll come back to that. We need to do A first. What would I do first in A? Well, guys, if you didn't write down the order of operations, I would if I was you. For multiplication and division, and for addition and subtraction, we're doing them at the same time, working left to right. You're right, because the P parentheses comes first. So guys, the work that we should have written down, and if you goofed it up, cross it out or grab a Post-it or something. I don't care if you erase. You don't need to erase. The first step, all I do is do the 4 plus 3. I do the parentheses. The parentheses I still have, there's nothing to be done. They're actually representing what? What is it when a number's right up against parentheses? Multiplication. So this parentheses is actually really working like a multiplication, and this parentheses is really working like a multiplication. And then anytime we open a parentheses, we got to close it. So now there's no exponents, so we move on down to multiply, divide. So 3 times 7, 21. 3 times negative 6. Well, there's only one negative, so we know we're going to get a negative answer. Think about your sign, then think about your numbers. What's 6 times 3? 18. Who's going to win there, the good guy or the bad guy? The good guy is stronger. By how much? We do subtraction. 21 minus 18. We get 3. B and C were tricky, so you guys should pay special attention here. The absolute values carry down all the way until the end. So, at first, I do not do negative 6 plus 9. Why? Because that 9 is involved in a multiplication. So negative 6 just drops down. Nothing has happened with it. It hasn't become positive. I do that at the end, after I put all these things together. So 9 times negative 2, what would 9 times negative 2 be? Negative 18. Hey, look, negative 18 there and there. I know, I think I'm funny. But we need to put a plus sign here because it's and, right? Just like this plus sign that we had up here, we have and the negative 18. And what's 3 times 3? 9. Still, we do not make things positive. We do that at the end. So I would put your negatives together and then deal with the positive. What's a negative 6 with a negative 18? How much negative do we have in total? Yeah, negative 24. We still have our absolute value bars. Negative 24 plus 9. Ooh, negative 24 and a positive 9. Do they get along or do they fight? They fight, right? Like negative versus positive, they fight. Who wins? Negative by how much? I kind of think in my head. Oh, 15, right? So we get negative 15, but then absolute value does what? Makes it positive, and we actually get positive 15 thanks to that absolute value. Questions on that? It all came down to order. The order that we did things is what got some people there. So I'm going to go through C and D relatively quickly because we don't have tons of time left. 14 times 3. Ooh, so Technically, I shouldn't do this first. Technically, I should look for my parentheses first. This parentheses has work to do. This parentheses, can I do 5 plus negative 9? Yes, I can. So there's work to do inside that parentheses. So everything else I bring down. Absolute value bar. 2 times up against the parentheses. If you need to add a dot in there to remind yourself, add that dot. 5 plus negative 9. Negative 4. Make sure you close that absolute value. I make my absolute value bars pretty darn tall. 14 times 3. I can now do, because we're on to the multiplication step, our multiplication steps. So 14 times 3, that's a little tricky. I would do 10 times 3 and then 4 times 3. We still have that plus 7. We still have plus the absolute value. What's 2 times negative 4 going to give us? Careful, we're multiplying, right? You just put them together through addition, which is a really common mistake that I see these and I add them accidentally. So inside the absolute value becomes negative 8. And then what does the absolute value do to negative 8? Now it makes it positive. Once I've simplified inside of it. So now I have 42 and 7 and 8. I can just put them all together, right? It's addition at this point. So you're good to finish that one on your own. And then D, again, parenthesis first. But what happens first inside of this parentheses? Do we add in here first or multiply in here first? If we look at our order of operations, we're always multiplying before we're adding, right? So unless something else is happening to make us add first, we need to multiply before we add. So this 2 times 3, and this was like the trap door that got a lot of people, that's the only thing that happens in step 1. So negative 16 plus 3 times 7. What is 2 times 3? 6. I still am inside my parentheses because I still have work to do inside those parentheses. So I'm still on that P step for parentheses. 7 plus 6. I know you guys are eating. It's okay. Now, what do I do in my next step? Add, subtract, multiply, divide, exponents, parentheses. What are we doing? If we have multiplication, which we do, remember this is multiplication, we said multiplication comes before addition. Right? So we have to multiply here. 3 times 13 is 39. And we've got a negative and a positive and a positive. I would always team up my numbers first. So 39 and 10 are going to team up, right? What do they make? 49. And then they get in the fight with negative 16. Who's going to win that battle? The positive, right? So to figure out by how much, if we need to do the subtraction off to the side, we can. 33. That makes sense. We get 33. We got just a minute or two left, so if people have questions on the homework, we can go over that. But I'm going to go ahead and stop this video for number 4 from the back of the follow-up.